I did want to throw it to a listener email here. It
Okay.
kind of deals with the schedule for the fall, because I was mentioning we got Evolution coming up, we got Crown Jewel, we got Survivor Series, we got all the shows. Just had Hell in a Cell, we had Super Showdown, and this kind of deals with what those shows should be. So I did want to say, if any of you ever have something you want to read on the air, if you want to send in a thought, we'll share it on the air. You got a question for us to discuss, send it in, topropenation@gmail.com. We'll get you on the air. We'll talk about it. And so this one comes from our buddy Dalvin Brown, who has sent in emails before we've read. He says, hello there, Top Rope Nation. I had a thought about WWE using former WCW pay-per-views to incorporate into their schedule. However, my thoughts would be to take out some and replace some with more memorable names. So for example, in April, post-Mania, there could be Spring Stampede. July, Bash at the Beach. October, have Halloween Havoc. December, Starrcade. Don't make these house shows like they've done with Starrcade, I think, last year.
And they're doing it again this year.
Yeah. Don't make these house shows, and I will find them to be better. He says he would take out Extreme Rules, Hell in a Cell. What do we say? I love this idea. Why? And they own the branding to those names. Why not use some of these most recognizable names in the history of pro wrestling? Especially, it seems like they have just kind of some nameless pay-per-views. We've talked about how Hell in a Cell now being not in October. It used to be in October. I guess it was in September this year. But we've talked about how Hell in a Cell is a theme pay-per-view. Not the biggest fan of that, because you always just have to have the Hell in a Cell match. But I would love it if they'd bring back Halloween Havoc as the October pay-per-view. I think that would be great.
That's about the only one I like. I mean, a lot of those other ones are just kind of stupid names that, I mean, just
Spring Stampede never meant anything. That was just WCW. I think that was their 11th of the 12 months they filled up.
Yeah. I mean, in Bash at the Beach, I mean, just, I don't know. Great American Bash, they kind of brought that back for a while, but they're just a little bit too global for that now. Just Starrcade and Halloween Havoc might be really the only ones that I think mean a lot to people.
Yeah, see, I don't think the issue is, okay, you can call it something, you can call it Halloween, but if the card's no good, then it doesn't matter.
That's true. But we did talk about how this is a branding thing nowadays with the brand.
Okay, I'll say this. WCW with the, WWE, you mentioned this, right? I think that WWE has some pretty generic titles for its pay-per-views.
Mm-hmm.
Payback.
Great Balls of Fire.
Well, that one was
good because we got Jerry Lee Lewis on the pay-per-view.
Yeah, Payback. But, this was more of a thing in the aughts when you had like Backlash and Vengeance,
Unforgiven.
Unforgiven, Fully Loaded. Like, those names really meant nothing. I actually thought, truthfully, in the heyday of the Monday Night Wars, WCW did have better branded pay-per-views.
Oh, yeah, I agree entirely.
With the sets and stuff, even as dumb and failed a concept as Road Wild was, at least it was like unique looking,
Yeah, I was going to say that for Bash at the Beach. It would actually be very cool if they brought back Bash at the Beach and they did it outside like WCW did a few times. Make sure to actually sell tickets, though. But I think the scenery change on wrestling events is huge to freshen up things. And I would love to see them do something creative like that, where you have a different setting. I think Bash at the Beach.
Yeah, but I
think that could be a cool pay-per-view to bring back. I kind of agree with what you guys were saying. Like Halloween Havoc to me would be one of the coolest ones to bring back. I always love the Halloween Havoc sets. I think Starrcade has a lot of potential. And they've done Great American Bash. That was one of the classic.
And it didn't work. But it didn't work. Now, part of it was those shows, I believe, when they brought it back the first time, it was a SmackDown only pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the first two, but they did not do well on pay-per-view. And, of course, Vince was like, well, no one likes this name. But I think, it was maybe self-serving. I don't know. I mean, do you know what I would do? I would make, if it fell on a Monday or a Tuesday, I would make a Raw or a SmackDown, a special Halloween Havoc edition of the show.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I like that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Is what because that's one thing too with these Raws and SmackDown. I mean, I wish they would do like every once in a while, like a themed episode of those shows.
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I think it's just cool, you know, if it's actually Halloween or something, or close to, like people like into like dressing up in costumes, and I don't know, you can even bring back some of the silliness of the 80s. Remember that Saturday Night's Main Event?
Yeah, I always really liked when they did the throwback Raw shows and they brought back the old red, white, and blue ropes and the Raw set and stuff. So yeah, it's just a good change of pace, freshen up the look for a week or so. As far as the other WCW pay-per-views go, like I don't see them bringing back Uncensored or Super Brawl. What else? Fall Brawl.
Those names didn't mean a ton. I mean, well, Fall Brawl was always associated with the War Games, but
which NXT is using. So there you go. There's one.
Yeah, there you go. They did trademark all those names because they were pissed at MLW for using War Games. So.
No, I think Starrcade makes sense and Halloween Havoc makes sense, and the rest I don't know, I can give or take, but those two would be cool.
You know, guys like us, I think, also maybe overrate what the name Starrcade means to the younger audience. It still means a lot in the Carolinas, which is why it worked really well last year. This year they're running it in Cincinnati, which is a little curious. But Cincinnati, you know, NWA did run there. But I don't know. I don't have I don't think, unless if you wanted to make it a huge deal, like Starrcade like loaded up, because remember that was their signature pay-per-view, or allegedly was. Under Bischoff, some would say that changed, but unless you're going to load the show up, it really doesn't mean a hill of beans.